Hey, what is up, y'all? Welcome to Conversations here with Heavy Cardboard. Today, I'm happy to be joined by designer, publisher, man of many hats here, Louis Shaw, the co-founder of Braincrack Games. So, Louis, thanks for hanging out today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Sorry, I've got the feedback from the video coming from somewhere, and I don't know
See,
how or
I
where.
told you. There you go. All right, no
I
worries,
don't
no
even have
worries.
it open.
Well, hopefully everything's good on the audio end. It should be good. So, first off, the important question, I hope the weather there is better than it is here outside of Boston.
It's all right. I don't know how dreary and dull it is in Boston, but it's England here, so it's
It's
nothing
it's
amazing.
it's dreary and dull here currently. Tomorrow we're supposed to have another snowstorm. We had a blizzard last week and yeah, it was last Saturday. 24 inches of snow we had about, which was really miserable and unpleasant. Audio still over on your end?
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm just hearing everything twice, so I don't know what's
That's annoying as all get out. It wasn't the problem. So the joys of live. So y'all stand by, hang out. We can watch Louis. No, you're fine. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. See if we can get that sorted out on your end. We thought we had everything sorted out. The joys of live. I'm trying to think. So if you don't have YouTube open, then, yeah, you should be fine. But
Yeah, that's what I thought. If I leave the call and then jump back in, would that
oh,
work?
that won't
Maybe.
cause any problems at all. If you need to, go ahead. Yeah, no, that's fine. Go ahead.
Let's try this.
All
Okay,
right.
one sec.
Okay, we'll be back. All right, so here, we'll just hang out here. So it'll just be, hey, if y'all have some questions for me in the meantime while we wait for Louis to rejoin. The joys of live. That's all right. So be it. So what do we have for y'all coming up? Let's see. We have, I'm going to butcher this all night tonight. And the one time I mention it now, Jiangnan, I think is how you say it. The game from Moa Ideas. It's like spelled Jiangnan, but it's Life of Gentry. We have that tonight at 7 o'clock. And then tomorrow, because of demand, folks have really asked, we are going to be doing a 4-player playthrough of Imperial Steam with the variable setup. So that should be good. And so we'll see how that goes. It's going to be the same 3 that was in the Imperial Steam playthrough as last week, with the addition of Ken. So there will be nukes as well. So we will see how that goes. Hopefully this works. So let's see.
Hello.
Hey,
I'm only hearing one Ed.
hey, hey, we're back. All right.
Don't
That's
know what
all
was
right.
broken, but I fixed it.
All right. Hey, number one thing for computer issues, did you reset it?
I nearly did, but then I just closed everything else, and yeah.
Good.
Somebody
Hey,
was
we're
playing it.
golden. All right.
It's not
Hey,
anymore.
no
It's all good.
worries. It's all right. It happens. The joys of working without a net. I will say this, though. As somebody who has interviewed folks before, you can appreciate this. If I record something, it takes me, and I'm not exaggerating, it takes me like 44 takes to get something right, no matter what it is. Live, I don't have a choice.
You just got to run with it.
And
Yeah.
it works, and I tend to work better with this, so who knew? Anyway, so Louis, thanks for hanging out with us today. And
Pleasure.
you and your crappy UK weather, which very similar here. And like I was saying earlier, we had a blizzard last weekend, got over 2 feet of snow. And
Wow.
like, that's a lot of, I don't care where you're from, unless you're like from Reykjavik, maybe. 2 feet of snow is a lot of snow.
Yeah, when it starts coming into the house and you don't have a say about it, that's when it's like, okay, the snow needs to chill out a little bit
Right.
now.
We had a snowman that the wind built on the patio. It was about
Hmm.
3 foot
Hmm.
tall because the wind was whipping underneath the patio door. And yeah, anyway, it happens.
Yeah,
And
I've been some places where like you open your door in the morning and then it's like the shape of your door in the snow, like immediately outside your house. It's like,
you're
okay,
like,
right,
and I'm going to
this is a
close
job
that and
now. Yeah.
imagine that doesn't exist and not worry about that. Yeah, I totally get that. All right. So first off, before we get into Braincrack and the games that you guys publish and how you got into that, what got you into the board games? What got you into the hobby to begin with?
Oh gosh, so like as you can probably tell from my horrific accent, I'm from the UK and from England, and I started this company when I was at university when we kind of really got into gaming because the university culture here, as it is in many places, is just like social drinking to the nth degree.
Sure.
And I was starting to think like, not necessarily, I don't want to say I'm bored of this, but I kind of want some other things I can do with my friends other than like going and getting drunk in a really, really loud nightclub. So that was the kind of
That's a rite of
attraction.
passage, though, kind of. But
Oh yeah, but you do it for like 2 years and then it's like, oh, okay,
same thing
is there
over and
anything
over. I
else?
get that.
Yeah.
The age disparity between you and I, like I did that probably before you were born, and so not at university. I did it in the Marine Corps, but I can relate. I can. Things don't change in that regard, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's yeah, it's the kind of going through it with everyone. It builds some strong friendships certainly.
sure.
But then yeah, so I was looking for things to do that wasn't that, and I think a couple of friends sort of looking for the same thing. Um, and then yeah, it was kind of on the kind of riding the modern board game scene, riding the wave of kind of social media and just going as nuts as it is now. And yeah, I had that just like overnight realization of like, oh, I could actually make a board game. Like it's something that I'd always thought about, like in terms of because I was a really like avid video gamer and was like, oh, this is something I'd love to do, but I don't know how to code or anything. And then I was like, oh, I can make cards and stuff. I could do this. So let's just
So
have a
did
go at
you?
it.
So did you start wanting to make a board game before you were actually like really playing a lot of board games? Then, in that case,
I mean, in some senses, yeah. Like I thought like, oh, I've discovered, modern board games, but
mm-hmm.
I'd maybe only played like 5 or 6 of them. So I was still having a lot of ideas that weren't actually new. And in,
They were
in
new to
and,
you,
and
but right.
and yeah, new to me. And it was good that like I kind of after a while I kind of took a step back from designing when I realized, oh, there are people who like have played a lot more games and know more about it than me, and kind of I can just indulge in their expertise from now on.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So what games did you get into? Like the standard, Catan, Ticket to Ride, stuff like that,
Yeah,
or
like I
what?
think like because we're like our kind of local core group are like really into like role play and stuff. So it's like role playing games and also like Betrayal on the House on the Hill was a big one for us, like storytelling games, stuff like that. And yeah, then started going to like local game groups and it was just yeah, whatever was on the table because we didn't have a like, as students, we didn't have like a ginormous board game budget. So it was just a really exciting time, and it still is. Like there's nothing more exciting for me now than like seeing something new on a table happening in front of me, and I'm
It,
just like it
it's
ticks all the
funny.
boxes.
Having been doing this now for a while, you would think that it would just be same old, same old. Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah, no.
cards or a board or. There's still stuff that when I see a picture of a new game, if I know nothing about it, and I just see, I can be like, ooh, what's that?
Mm.
Like, you get that kind of 5-year-old, ooh, kind of feeling to it. So I can completely relate to that. So from that point, you're playing games. You had started to kind of mess around designing. What made you want to get into though designing games?
Um, I think probably that, if I've been completely honest, that there was at some level of like, oh, I can do this, better than anyone else, kind of like, I know best kind of mindset. But also just like there were games that I had in my mind that didn't look um, ones I was seeing, and kind of like themes and like topics that I wanted to explore. I think initially that like, or just like, you know, paying tribute to things that I did really like in like, you know, maybe in like video games that weren't necessarily in board game form yet.
Like, well, okay, so I've been on this video game kick of late, anyways. So, like, what video game wise, like?
Well, I mean, so like the second game we did Mind Out was there was this like little flash game called Motherload that
I have
was
heard of this.
kicking around like ages ago, and I was just like, it just like it's such a satisfying game to just sit there and kind of soak up time. So Mind Out was my like trying to turn that into a tabletop game, and was I think a very good tribute, even if it's not like the most, you know, best-selling game ever.
Sure.
And then like Farsight is our like big minis game, and that's like kind of an ode to like RTS games and like strategy and, you know, and big old mechs and stuff. And Last Resort, our most recent game, is heavily inspired by like Roller Coaster Tycoon and Theme Park Tycoon and games like Startopia, where you're kind of like managing like a space station. So it's definitely something where, like, although over the years we've learned more and more about like what are the strengths of board games, and that this particular medium of like sitting around a table and having a shared experience, but always having like a really strong influence from video games and kind of hours sat in front of the TV.
No, and I appreciate that, because it's both video games and board games are good storytelling mediums, but they're very different in the way they can go about doing that, because obviously the engagement is completely different, right? Just the interaction with those mediums.
And it's been really interesting being able to work with video game publishers over the last couple of years in like varying degrees, and kind of hearing about like what they want to get from like tabletop adaptations, and having to have those discussions and be like of what to expect when you're converting a video game experience to a tabletop, and the kind of the pitfalls of that, but also the ways it can expand it, and especially like, you know, games where you've got something that everyone, you know, a world everyone feels like they've lived in a video game form that they're really familiar with, to be able to take that into a shared experience can be really special, I think.
It's got to be scary though, too, right? Because
terrifying.
Right, because you have these fans of an IP that they expect X, no matter absolutely, and you got to nail that, I think.
And those expectations can be like completely unreasonable as well. Like and that's not a dig. It's just like sometimes people will sit there and be like, "Oh yeah, like a Call of Duty game. I want like a first-person shooter on my tabletop," and it's just like that's not actually possible. Like but people will sit there and be like, "It's got to be faithful, and it's got to be like for like kind of perfect adaptation."
Right, but yeah, that's gotta have a level of pressure that a non-IP game has to, because it's your own world in that regard, right? Whether you're a designer, publisher, developer, whatever that may be, if it's not an IP, you're free to do with it. There's no expectation, there's no history there.
In a sense, I think like there's still definitely like, whether it's from the genre or the theme or the mechanics, people bring a lot to the table, even just from the skimpiest of kind of descriptions, you know, and set themselves up for disappointment in some cases.
That's actually really fair. That's a really good point, because you do have expectations. If you hear, I don't know, a dice drafting game, or you hear a space setting, or a trading in the Mediterranean, whatever that may be, you have a certain level of expectation, I guess, of what you think it should be. And if it deviates from that, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you have an eyebrow raised, like, well, if you're going to do something that I don't expect, then you better do it in a cool and...
It's got to be, it'll be something else, but is it something that I necessarily enjoy is always the question for people. Huh. And I think like it's... I think like Jeff Engelstein said it really well, where he was just like, try, like a lot of games fail because they subvert too many expectations in one go, and he's just like, try one thing that's really different in each game and just hammer that down. Whereas we've done games like, especially like Venice is one where it becomes such like a Marmite game because it's such a unique thing. Like it's like spatial engine building, and there's a player elimination mechanic, and it's unlike a lot of other games I've played. And that was the first thing David Turk said when he pitched it to us, was just like, here are all the reasons that other publishers have rejected this game. Here are all the reasons that you're going to hate this, because he was just like, I've heard it all before, so let's just get it out of the way with.
David will shoot straight. That is a known thing. He's a good
That's
dude.
why we love him.
Yeah, he is a character, and he will pull no punches. That is true. So all right, let's kind of delve into Braincrack then. Why? So designing kind of at the very entry point of the hobby as you're playing it, and then decided, you know what? I want to get rich. Let's publish games. Said no one ever.
Yeah.
So why start a publishing company? Because let's face it, there is no. I'm not going to say there's no joy. There's no reward. I know of a lot of publishers that enjoy it, but man, it's a tough road. Why get into publishing?
It's you pay your way every step of the way. Like even if you do enjoy it, like it still has that price of entry. We, like I said, started off designing games that I'd published, and we got that kind of like got the kick out of it. We got the habit, but had this realization that A, there are designers who are a lot better than I am, and B, when we started going to conventions, and weirdly enough, I was invited to like judging panels for people submitting their games, and I was just like, why? I mean, flattered, but why me? I'm like barely a publisher, like a year or two into the game, and we had that opportunity. So when people started pitching our games and really like giving it 100%, we realized, there's like just this huge pool of passion for the people for their own projects, and it was exciting for us to do something that felt new every time. And so that was how we went from doing a card game to doing a tile laying game about building a haunted house, and then like a war game with like big giant mech miniatures, and then a Euro game. It was all just like we wanted to make games that were as varied as the ones that we played, which is definitely like starting a publisher on hard mode. If you want to have no discernible likelihood between the games.
You would think like, oh, okay, you have this type of game. I would recommend going to that publisher because that publisher tends to either be it theme-wise or just like game weight-wise or all of that. Having kind of a finger in a whole bunch of different pies in that regard, I would say has got to be a mixed blessing, is it not?
Oh yeah, I mean it's especially hilarious in the pitches that we get from designers, because they'll where they do the part of the pitch that's like, and here's why we're pitching it to you. Here's why we think it's a good fit for Braincrack. It will usually be, I don't know, I'm just showing you this game because it looks like you'll publish anything. Or it's, I have seen the thread that you haven't, and I know what links all of your games. And sometimes it's like, okay, right, I see what you're getting at, and they're like, it's a kind of rewarding strategic experience. It's like, all right, yeah, I see where you're going, what you're going at, but
okay,
more often than not, it's there's no link, so why not?
You know what, you like you said, you'll publish anything. Not this is their mentality. So I'll try and see if this fits.
Yeah. It's just need to make it not sound like an insult when they say it. That's
100%, right? Like, yeah, you'll do it. And give it to Mikey. He'll eat it. No, not like that at all. But why start? What got you into publishing to begin with? Why start Braincrack? Why not with games that you ideas that you had for designs of yourself, or try that again, designs that you would come up with? Why not just pitch that to somebody else? Why start your own publishing company to begin with?
Just that it was kind of the becoming aware of Kickstarters, and the access and the possibility of that is something you can get like really drunk on really quickly. And there are hundreds more people who've done the same thing as I am, because they realize that like kind of I don't need to be accountable to anyone apart from the backers once you actually got a successful project, but after that point you've already you've already
them.
made it.
And they're so patient and understanding anyway.
But I mean, for someone like I have had a spotted kind of career of like, hopping between places where I'm just like not happy with, being bossed around. I've always been someone who's just like hungry for that sense of independence and kind of creative freedom. So that was, I think, the biggest attraction, being able to like make something, show it to an audience, and with relatively small, risk, see whether or not they like it, because obviously we have like upfront costs, but at every stage it's never been anything that's going to like financially ruin us if a game doesn't sell.
So just want to be your own boss. All
yeah,
right,
pretty much.
So
Wanted to live the dream.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, that's kind of part of how this all started on my end, so I can relate to that as well. So so your first game was one that you designed. And then going from that to, I mean, we'll get to Last Resort and the gig and all that, but in between, how did you get from point A to point Q, I guess?
It was never a direct route.
Never is.
We are like, I have this kind of like kleptomaniac habit of like, making different friends and picking up different projects and getting excited by the next shiny thing. But it was, like kind of going to conventions, establishing ourselves as a like publisher, and being, finding it hilarious when people deign to like pitch things to us as though our opinion matters about anything. And then, kind of like doing one Kickstarter at a time and building out this very like confused audience of people, being like, okay, sure. And like genuinely, like there are people who have bought every one of our games that we've brought out,
But see, that could be somewhat exciting too, because I don't know what to expect.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't
that was
think what we kind of wanted to.
A bad thing, right?
Yeah, that was what we wanted to give the feeling of, and it was never like I don't think we've ever brought out a game that we thought, people who like X will probably actually definitely not buy this one. And I never felt like we were like shutting, our kind of earlier fans out with games. It was always just like, this is different, but it still meets our criteria, something we want to put on the table. And we'd be tooting our own horn to say that we are like, super unique and have really, unusual tastes. It's like, we like games that make us feel rewarded for our time and kind of put a smile on our face, and just hoping that the people who have already bought our games have that similar taste going forward, I guess.
And no, I think there's something to be said for that. I appreciate that idea. Plus, it's going to be kind of like a kid on Christmas. Like, you don't know what's the next game going to be. I'm excited to find out. I like that. So you did. Don't want to use the word a trilogy, kind of, but
yeah.
Right. Go ahead. Talk about those.
Yes. So when we signed, we got a pitch from Fabio Lopiano at UKG in, I forget the year now, 2018, 17.
They're all running together with COVID. I get it.
Yeah. It's all a big mess. And Fabio pitched us this game, and I'd never really played a kind of, well, I played some like earlier Euro games like Agricola and stuff like that, but I'd never played a kind of recent kind of stock Mediterranean, Euro game. And so when I sat down and started like playtesting it with friends, they were just like, is this Braincrack? This doesn't seem like that was the first time they were like, oh, okay, this. And because like I have like friends that are really not in that board game space but still sit and like play board games with us, they were just like, this seems strange. Are there people who are going to buy this? But that was like the first time that I'd picked up a game from a publisher.
It's so dry.
Yeah.
No, there are people out there that really like that stuff. I get it.
Yeah, and this was the first time, and because like Fabio had already done Kalimala at that point, I was like, this is a game people are going to like and want. And it was. And that was like one where we had a lot of like crossover success into an existing market, whereas like with Farsight, which was our war game, like it was and it was edgy for a war game. It did some things differently that kind of got people's backs up. Whereas this was like, yeah, it's a Euro game. Yeah, it's got pretty oil painting on the front, and the same convention we had like an artist come to pitch himself to us, being like, "Oh, I don't know what projects you have that might suit my style, but I do these big like traditional like church murals and like oil paintings and stuff." And I was just like, I don't think we really have anything for that. And then like an hour later, Fabio gave me a Ragusa. Like called him up the last next week. I was like, we've definitely got something for you now. And yeah, and then so that when that kind of took off, and then obviously David was like struggling pitching Venice to publishers, and he was like posting in a group about it, and I saw like, oh, this has got, sounds like it's got some similarities to Ragusa, and so it was like from the outset it was not intended to be a trilogy, but we found this set of games that really had some, they had like different core mechanics, but a really like shared ethos of really using that like shared space on the table to the maximum, it being as far away from multiplayer solitaire as possible, I suppose. And all kind of so when Dean pitched us Florence, funnily enough, he had changed the theme to be about octopi, like the Octopi King, and just because he had all these like really cute like 3D printed pieces, and he was finding like that was just what was getting people to the table at playtest meetups, and I was like, right, okay, but like, and I did some like research on different like areas in like history and trying to get it to be around the same kind of like place and time as Ragusa and Venice, and I was like, what if it was like the Medici in Florence? And Dean was like, oh, that's what the theme was originally, actually. I was like, what? You just didn't mention that. But I had like kind of somehow intuited it, but thought it was my own idea. And because Dean turns out had been to Florence like 5 or 6 times and was a huge fan of the city itself. So yeah, kind of.
So where it started, it changed and then went back to, and hence Florence.
Yeah. So and that was why I can get away with it not seeming like a kind of pasted on theme, because it's just this whole trilogy has kind of come about by happenstance, but they're all like 3 really good, really complementary games. But yeah, the side effect has then been when we go back to doing our usual shtick of you'll never guess what's coming next. Well, our mailing list of Euro backers was just like, what?
Yeah, right. I was gonna say, so going from this trading in the Mediterranean, you're stereotypical. I don't mean that in a, but the thing wise, of in the Mediterranean to hey, let's go basically make a theme park out in space. I mean, right, with Last Resort. So how did Last Resort come about?
So this was I think one that was actually pitched to us before Ragusa. Even. Okay. So this is one that's been in the pipeline for a long time, but one that was just had a lot of like going back to the whiteboard in terms of like getting the componentry to work. And sometimes like designers give you a puzzle of this game that's like really good, but if you put it into production the way that they'd created it, it kind of struggles to get the theme across, right? Like it's a really like functional first prototype. Okay. With not like enough space for art and stuff. So there was just a lot of going back to the whiteboard and saying like, how are we going to make this look cool on the table? Because that's one of our like big priorities when we go into production on a game. That's how we sell it. And for a long time it was just about building a resort on an island, like kind of Tropico style thing. Okay. And it was when our art director Dan joined us year before last, and he was going through each of our projects, and he was just like, this island thing, it's okay, I don't really know if I'm in love with it. So we were like, how do we amp up the comedy of this game? Because this is a medium, light to medium Euro game, where you're building a holiday resort now in space, but the core mechanic is kind of dark, where you're drafting these tourists to come and visit your attractions, but if a tourist comes to visit and there's no space for them, they're gone. You just have to get rid of them. You just throw them to one side, and it's now ejecting them out of the airlock because they didn't have a ticket. So we wanted something that tied into that dark humor and the idea of
As opposed to
venture.
drowning them, now you're just gonna throw them out into space.
Yeah.
And
So
okay, all right.
leaning into this kind of weird, like semi-dystopic kind of venture capitalists buying space stations and turning them into like I don't know what I don't know what the American equivalent would be of like Butlins, but yeah, like Six Flags or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Sure. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, like kind of cruddy like tourist attractions. No shade on Six Flags because they're
No,
not
no.
the
Hey, it's no Cedar Point. It's okay. That's fine.
okay.
No, no offense taken here. So,
But yeah, so
so,
yeah,
so he came, did Dan come up with the idea then, or did you just like he was like with the
I
theme,
think
and then how did that come about then?
I can't remember who came up with the alternate theme, but there was definitely like a through line from like video game kind of simulation games like Startopia and stuff
Mm-hmm.
that we really loved. And actually, Startopia got a relaunch last year, which is just like complete coincidence. But we started to develop the look with Andrew Forster, who did the sculpts for our Euro game. So we had like the little gondolas in Venice and the carriages in Florence. I kind of turned around and I was like, could we use your sculpting for just like art? Like if you made like little rooms and kind of and sets, so it kind of looked a little bit video gamey. I was like, have you done any like sci-fi stuff? And as it happens, Andrew had just as a hobby been like sculpting these like different like spaceships and stuff and doing like little renders of them in 3D. So that we set about making this little microscopic world of little astronauts doing getting assaulted by like tentacles in an alien zoo or playing golf in zero gravity or just filled it to the brim with like sci-fi references and just
That's
dumb
awesome.
humor.
And it sounds like everybody had fun in coming up with the ideas, both
Oh
the
yeah,
art design as well as the leaning into the theme on it.
yeah, and it's something that like on the Kickstarter campaign, which is live at the moment, like we've got this like they were calling it the Daft scheme. The I can't the I can't I think it's like Democratic Architectural Fabrication Team or something, where it's
Uh-huh.
just like people are coming up with ideas for tiles that they want to see in the game, and as we break certain like stretch goals, we're gonna do like a poll on what people's favorite ideas are that the backers have come up with, and make them and add them to the game because why not?
That's
So really kind of getting
that's
everyone to lean into the themes.
yeah. I mean, it's a theme that doesn't take itself too seriously, but
Yeah.
that it kind of encourages that off the wall lean into. Let's have some
Mm.
fun with this, right?
And it's an interesting thing because it's like it's a game I think that backers of our like Euro trilogy will enjoy, and we've had like some of the backers like come back and test it and be like, oh yeah, I really like this. It's just like the theme is just fun first, not a serious bone in its body, but it still has that like same like kind of strategic underpinning that is in all of our games.
Nice. So actually, on that note, so as you mentioned, the Kickstarter is live now. So go check it out if you are so
Yes,
inclined.
please.
Chip in chat asks that him and his wife are excited for it, love the theme and its humor. Scheduled delivery September. It's now
Uh-huh.
what I guess the beginning of February. How confident are you that that's a realistic time frame?
Yeah, I mean, pretty confident. Like, I'm hoping that a lot of the issues we've had with like production and fulfillment and stuff are like gradually starting to calm down now.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do our kind of usual production timeline of 6 months, which yes, then gives us an extra month leeway. Yeah, and like pretty much all of the art, apart from obviously anything that we come up with
Mm-hmm.
backers, is all primed and ready to go.
So
So
so is the game pretty much done at this point
yeah,
then, outside
yeah.
of the like what you just said with the backer inspired artwork?
hmm Yeah, developmentally, like we're all done. It was we always spend a long time in development on our games, getting stuff like polished and kind of and primed before we start a Kickstarter because we don't like having the hanging obligation of like making a game for too long. So it does like surprise me when some publishers are like, oh yeah, we're gonna do our Kickstarter, and then we're going to design some extra expansion material and then print it. I'm just like, what?
That always feels so suicidal to me.
I like, each to their own. Like they make it work, but I just can't. I couldn't fathom working on something for that long. I suppose it's like every extra month of that time is like something that's going to like potentially change the prices of things, and it's just like, oh,
that's fun.
Like I like it to get done as soon as it can be.
Okay, so my favorite question to ask publishers then: how do you stop development? How do you know when a game is done? When do you just say, okay, I can tinker with this forever, but nope, we're done. That's it. How do you do that?
Good question. Have you got an answer?
Because every publisher I have asked has answered this in a different way.
Yeah, like it's something that like because we like came into it from a like every project has been different. And it wasn't until we started working with designers who have had more of like a career that we considered the idea that there might be like one way of doing it that actually works. So yeah, like starting with kind of like Venice was where we had like development cycles kind of implemented, and a lot of it was like me going to London when David was still living in London and like sleeping on his floor for a couple of nights and just getting like everyone over to play this game, and just like and like Andre, the co-designer of Venice, like, you know, flew over from Poland and we would literally just like sat there playing this heavy Euro game like end to end for hours and hours and hours, and I was just like, this is incredible, like so much fun, like, and like, but like just mentally exhausting.
Sure.
But yeah, and so David like is like I mean, I get him involved on most things I'm working on now just because he's got like this really very rigorous approach of boiling everything down to its essential points and saying, okay, this is what you need to do, and then it's done. And then yeah, it's a case of kind of getting to a point where we are happy with what we would call like the core like bones of the design. Really like going off the wall until that point and just throwing every idea in there and trying to just like essentially get a core experience that we think matches the theme now. And we would literally like, so for the gig, which is our upcoming game, like last year we had 3 or 4 like versions of the rules like running in tandem, doing different like testing and then just playing each of them and then being like, which one of this feels more like playing in a jazz band, and then going to that and then boiling it down, and okay, and slowly but surely the bits that were staying and weren't changing became apparent, and then it was just like, okay, how do we balance it? And then it's development's done. Like that's in an ideal world, that's how it happens. But yeah.
That's actually this is the first time I've heard anybody take that approach. So let me kind of chew that over for a second. So having different versions of the rules of the same game and kind of seeing which just worked better.
Yeah, and it's something that like it definitely works better the shorter you can get a game to be, even if you're like only getting people to play like half an hour of the game. But if it's like a representative chunk, this is what the game feels like to play. Being able to literally sit there and be like, okay, today we're going to try this version, and just play them all. And then usually like play it, then it's not necessarily a case of like playtesters trying to redesign your game for you or say like, oh, I like this, but I like this, and you come back with like 100 points of feedback that's difficult to discern. People can just be like, I like this version better because it did this, and they can see what's changing in real time. And
that's genius, actually. Now that I stop and think about it, now on that note, I would think that it would have to be, that approach would have to be on a smaller size game. So the gig, which is a roll and write, right?
It's a real-time dice placement roll and write.
Not stressful at all. But it would the scope of the game would have to be smaller, I would think, for that to actually work. Would it not?
Yeah. Like there's the more variables you have, the harder it gets, and with especially like with a game that with talking can take 2 hours. I'm not saying this is that, but like in the cases of those games that we've developed, like it's not necessarily a process that works for those, but this is something that we've recently been using and kind of implementing quite well, because we have just been by happenstance been doing games that can be boiled down to a shorter time frame.
I think that's a genius idea. I think that's really clever, and not something that in all the people I've talked to, I've never heard that approach being used. And if you can make it work, I think that's a really cool idea. So I think you might have something there. And
I mean, it's kind of drawing a lot from version control that's used in like video games. That's like something that in my attempts recently to become more organized, because I have just the most chaotic workflow imaginable. This is the version control is something that I've latched onto, and being able to like make track the changes between rules and stuff has been really useful. But it's not something that I've actually seen done by a huge amount of people.
No, that's really cool idea. So on that note, this real-time dice placement roll and write. So the gig. So designed by the same dude who does all the graphics for the channel.
Yeah, our very own Rob.
Yeah, so that was cool to find out. I had no idea when we first scheduled this interview. He was like, "Oh, wow, I know Lewis." I was like, "Oh, do you?" Yeah. He's like, "Yeah, he has my game. He's going to publish my." I was like, "Wait, what? What game? What?"
Yeah, and I don't know. Like, I don't know who should be more upset. If you should be more upset that he didn't mention me, or I'm more upset that he didn't mention you. But yeah, we have a mutual friend somehow.
Right, Rob, dude, we're gonna have words. So talk about the gig a little.
So I got some I just happened to have little like solo boards in front of me for the gig.
There you go.
But you got lots of like pretty 60s art in there. It is like I say, real-time dice placement game. So there's lots of frantic throwing your dice at the table and playing this like song as you're going, like a big shared board in the table, and literally like playing out the notes as they come in a kind of like I always forget the word, time order.
Oh yeah, for like when notes are played.
Yeah, things should happen in the order they happen in real
musical.
life.
Yeah, I get what you're saying though. Yeah.
Yeah, so like that was one of the things that we arrived at through this like kind of iterative testing thing, where we were doing like turn-based and kind of building out this structure where people were like rolling dice, modifying them in some way, and then placing them on a song to compete. And it was where we were like just constantly going back to the drawing board and saying like, what will make this feel like a game about music and not a game that we've pasted that theme on top of. And then I was like, oh, what if it was just like real time, and we were all just like doing whatever and just placing them on the song, and everyone was like, that's never going to work, it's going to be chaos, it's going to be so confusing. But then we played it once and we were like, okay, yeah, no, this is it. This is the one. And so yeah, like testing that in TTS and in the real life now, and finessing the finer points of that has been really interesting. The hook of the game for me is everyone has 4 dice. You have like 4 dice in your color, and you're just rolling them. You're trying to make this pattern on the song that is allows you to like collect the symbols on the spaces that you place on. But then the shapes that your dice make at the end of each song, like if you make a kind of like little like tetromino, kind of like S shape or L shape or little square or whatever, you're then drawing onto your solo board to play your instrument and unlock further symbols and solve this kind of like mini puzzle. And they're all like the shape of the instrument. So you see there's like a little like trumpet one.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Trying to press the little buttons on the top of it to like make the numbers go up, and yeah. So there's all these like different instruments in there that make the game just feel a little bit different each time. And it's like it's a kind of pretty like strategic kind of like light Euro game, I would say, but it plays in 15-20 minutes, and it's that sweet spot where it's just like, oh, that was good, can we play it again?
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to this. Now obviously I'm biased because it's our own Rob, so that's cool. But yeah, no, I'm stoked. And Rob did his own artwork. I mean, he's a graphic designer that we use.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, that's what that was the thing, like trade.
So Rob and his lovely wife Jamie lived in London from, I don't know when they moved there, but like this was about 4 or 5 years ago, I want to say now. Pitched the gig to us at UKGE, and we, us and several other publishers were like, this is a lovely concept and I want this. And I think we competed with like Osprey for it, and then signed it. And then, yeah, just because the concept was so good, and it was something that like a lot of people heard about, or saw the graphic design, because that's the thing, like, because of Rob, like, this has always looked good at every step of the process. Every time we've done a playtest, people are like, this is the final version, and I'm like, absolutely not. No. It's yeah, that like high expectation for like matching the theme and the mechanics perfectly has meant that, like, yes, it has spent the longest time in development, but it means we're now like the most excited for a game that we possibly ever have been. And we've got a lot of people who are just like, seeing the art and the theme and being like, I want this game. What is it about?
That's awesome. Has now, I'm not trying to throw Rob under the bus here or anything, but has it been difficult with the gig having the same person who's designer as well as graphic designer on the game? Has that had its unique challenges, or has it been easier having the same person?
Rob is a human like the rest of us, and whenever he puts pen to paper, he wants it to look, crisp and clean and perfect. And I have like the exact same problem when it comes to designing, where I'm just like, I have this in my head. I've got this like perfect like player board layout, and it's going to make everything so much easier, and it's going to make elevate this game to the next level. And then I make it and put it on the table, and it's like, actually, no, this is crap. Right, so yeah, like when Dan joined year before last, this is Dan May, who joined us from Starling Games, had this just a very, because he's like a very like art visuals focused person as well, but he's got all that development experience that helped him to pare it back and be like, okay, let's just scribble on bits of paper for this one and figure it out. And so like we've worked really well as a team, I think, like being able to keep pulling it off of each other. We're like three graphic designers who are just like constantly fighting each other for creative control. But it's when I find when you get to like 3 to 5 people on a team, that's the kind of sweet spot, because you can resolve every argument by some kind of majority and
odd numbers.
Yeah, and it just keeps things kind of moving forward. The only problem is Dan's in Australia, I'm in the UK, and Robert is now in the US, so we couldn't have picked worse time zones to live in. So we very rarely actually talk on the phone, all three of us.
Yeah, that would be difficult, but all right. So publishing in general, favorite thing about it, what is it?
Being able to talk with people and find out what everyone's different creative process is, because it's such a non-standard industry. Everyone is often like working in silos and coming up with things their own way, and it means that like more meetings than not, there is usually some kind of like moment where people are like, oh, that's genius, I should have been doing it like that the entire time. Or just getting it to see how someone else is doing it and have that revelation for yourself. So yeah, just that like collaboration and the feeling that even between publishers, it's not like a competitive cutthroat industry. Like people who aren't in the industry who but like working with us in like a business capacity sometimes just like, oh, do you need some kind of assurance against people stealing your trade secrets or whatever? And I'm just like, what are those? What would people steal from us? I don't know.
It's definitely a more friendly environment, the board game hobby in general. I mean, there is some of that, but that's the exception as opposed to
and especially like starting out in the UK and everything be like, we're all very like smushed together. We're only a tiny little like baby island. So everyone's kind of within arm's reach if you've got like questions about like how you're doing it. And it's just been like beyond magical to see people that we just met in convention halls are at like parties and stuff going on and doing just bonkers successful things. Like I've got like Isle of Cats behind me, and I remember when I met Frank at like a meetup, and I was just like, this guy's crazy. He's got more money than sense. None of this is ever going to work. And then he did like City of Kings and Isle of Cats and totally like found his people. and now I see it everywhere. Now
Right.
the game shop around the corner from me has it in the window, and I'm like,
That's
this is bonkers.
how's that feel, by the way? Having your game, or either game you designed or game you published, out there in the wild and seeing it and seeing people
It's
enjoy it.
it's good. It's funny how like how the numbers convert into fans in different ways sometimes. Like
What do you mean?
Dead and Breakfast is one game that we kickstarted and I think funded the least out of all of our games.
Uh huh.
And when we were going through it, we were just like, this is a really good game. Why is it struggling? And if it's the one, but it's the one. So like probably yeah, like sold the least out of all of our games, but it's the one thing that when I go to a convention and if I'm wearing the Braincrack logo on the T-shirt, people are like, "You made Dead and Breakfast. My friend has that, and we play it all the time, and we love it." So it's like it's really great feeling like you feel like found your people in that way, and be like, people who have the correct faves from the catalog.
Yes, you get it. You
Yeah.
understand.
And yeah, and it's just it's weird being like that dichotomy of how like some of the cheapest games that we've done are the ones that people play the most, and then you think that if you're spending like 100 odd quid on a game, you're gonna try and get it to the table more, but then we just hear way less from people who've bought the really expensive ones. I don't know why that is. I don't know the math on that.
Interesting. So on that note, then on the flip side, what's the most challenging aspect of being a publisher for you? COVID times notwithstanding, because I'm sure logistics right now have been miserable.
Yeah, I mean it's the feeling like just that feeling of occasionally being plunged into uncertainty or plunged into a new challenge that you didn't realize you had to do the week before, especially when if like you're still at the point where you're juggling it with a full-time job, which we were for the majority of Braincrack's history.
Mm-hmm.
Having like coming home and like your house being filled with boxes, and then you get an email and you realize you now have to like negotiate with a customs agent in Brazil or wherever, like just like new problems that you're completely unequipped to actually like solve. And as we have hinted towards, it's not a cash-rich industry. I don't have a big pile of money behind these games, so having to like do all of it, on a shoestring budget, which means a lot of the time doing it yourself, being your own, warehouse manager or whatever. Like it's just, the unexpected challenges that can drag you down sometimes if you sit there and you're like, this is not making or playing games, which is why I started this company.
Yeah, a lot of the nitty-gritty, mundane things can be really difficult, especially when you have no excuse or no experience doing them.
Yeah, or no choice in the matter, or if it threatens the whole operation if you don't do this one thing perfect. It's like has created several moments of just sheer terror, being like, you made a great game, but now you're gonna, it's all gonna fail because you can't read this, angry German tax letter. Like,
so how is Braincrack in general? How are you all navigating the COVID world? With from everything from fulfillment to just being able to get a game published in general.
Yeah, it puts a strain on everything. And as I pointed out earlier, like we're already running a publisher on hard mode. We're already doing things off the wall, a little bit off the beaten path, like niche within a niche, kind of approach. So, but also, like we hold ourselves to a really high standard in terms of like production and marketing and kind of the way we put ourselves across. So it's been a very like glacially slow kind of period of not having the cash in hand to like just rush stuff out and push it through and be like, oh well, once we get it, then we'll be able to sell it at conventions or we'll be able to get it into retailers, because for a lot of the last 2 years, neither of those have been a thing.
Right.
So it's kind of been like just every step has been very careful, and it's kind of still getting those like moments of joy in there when we're like, doing the things that we love best, but spending 2 odd years in like survival mode does it creates a certain amount of stress that you don't necessarily get to acknowledge each day either. It's not, you can't come home from work and be like, oh, I had a really stressful day at work, and then people are like, oh, what happened? It's just like the same thing that's happened every day for the last 2 years. We kind of made it work.
The positive note on that, I guess, is we're all right there with you, right? Like you're not alone having to survive.
And our backers have been like so nice. Like some people have nice backers, and then there are our backers who are just like god level supporters, and I love all of them so much, because just being able to turn around and be like, hey, we had a baby 3 months earlier than we were planning to, and that's kind of thrown everything off the track. They were just like, yeah, cool, whatever, we'll wait, we've got games.
That helps.
And then being like, oh yeah, like the factory's closed, or they're turning the power off strategically, or there's been a tornado, or all of the shipping containers have been bought speculatively by people who don't need to use them. Like everyone's just been so chill about it. And I think there's like a point last year, like after the Florence campaign, where we were just like, oh god, the price of everything has tripled overnight, and we have no way of making the numbers make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Agonizing over it for like a fortnight, and then finally writing an update to backers, and then them just being like, can we give you more money? We want to. And and having to like feel like we're matching that kind of generosity with what we do for our backers that's what keeps us going.
And that's all. That's one of the awesome things about this hobby in general and this community. There are far more amazing folks than aren't. And I think that helps all of the creative folk, inspiring them, I would say, and keeping them going.
Like
right?
It's like any kind of like industry. You get to a certain size, and like a certain amount of like flack is guaranteed, and we get like hate mail and people being weird in the comments and stuff, like anyone else. But like it's more orthodox back, as long as the people who turn up every time are kind of still singing our praises.
And it's like what Rocky says, communication's key, right? If you tell folks they're willing to be patient, just communicate.
Yeah, we're honest to a fault. Like it's good.
Good.
It's good to have friends like that.
Before I get into my series of 6 questions that I ask everybody I interview, there was one more. Chip asks, who would you most want to collaborate with on a game? I mean, you already have David Terzi, right? But is there anybody out there that you're like, I want to work with this person?
I know I'm not alone in this, but Ian O'Toole.
Sure. Ian, hey, if you're watching.
I spend a lot of time looking at Ian's portfolio and just being like, it's so pretty. How? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like very, very, very regularly now on a project, I'll be like, what do I want to look this like? And I'll like get Ian O'Toole games and like put them on the table and be like, what does that look like? What does that look like? Why? What are all the things? It like.
Don't take that wrong, Rob, Dan. Don't take that wrong. It's Ian.
They agree. I think Dan's worked with him before on projects and stuff. Like he's earned his reputation as a kind of master of the form, I think. So
he really is good, and I like how I like the way he goes about his business, just as far as the way he thinks about graphic design and such.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're fortunate enough. I can consider Ian a friend. He designed our patron shirt, and Ian's awesome, both as a person, as well as what he does.
And the same for Vital Asada as well. Like his game design ethos is one that the more I hear about it, the more I'm just like, yes, get in my inbox.
Nice. That's awesome. Favorite convention, is it UK Games Expo or something else?
Yeah, UK Games Expo or possibly GridCon in Devon, run by Gaming Rules, Paul Grogan.
Yep.
Just because that's one where we actually get to go and just play games.
What's that? At a convention, play games? Like, because we don't get a chance to.
We don't have to like just sit there and chill ourselves out for the whole weekend. Like we went there. In fact, it was GridCon was the last con we went to before the pandemic, and the first one, quote unquote, after the pandemic. The first one since. And yeah, just being able to go and play loads of completely different games and kind of spend time doing that. Like it's underrated. But yeah, apart from that, like in terms of ones that we exhibit at like UKG, like it's our home turf. The organizers are like angelic people who they like do not make a single cent off of running that convention, and God bless them, because they just put it all back into making it a really good show every year.
That's awesome. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Nice. All right. So, series of 6 fun yet thoughtful questions I ask everybody. Some are easier than others. But first off, how old would you be if you didn't know how old you are?
Oh,
Don't overthink it.
mid 60s. I think someone recently, like a very close friend, he was just like, he explained it well. He was just like, you have quite like old energy.
Thank you.
I've had like groups of friends who've like referred to me as granddad and stuff, and it's just like, yeah, okay, I get it, I see it, I like it. I'm definitely a board game kind of person.
Our youngest boy is 10. We say he's a 35-year-old man. He very much so I get that.
I think we realized recently, like, I think because like my parents are like older than like parents of other people my age by about like sort of 10-15 years or so. I think like we realized like, oh yeah, Lewis just like grew up a decade behind everyone else at home.
That's awesome. All right, if you could master one skill that you don't have right now, what would it be?
Oh, like I can't just say hands, but I mean like drawing, like fine crafts. I've got like a horrible like tremor, so my hands are always like shaking. I'm terrible at dexterity games and like Tokyo Highway and stuff.
So like engraving stuff, like something.
Yeah, just like kind of I illustration is the one thing where like I've put in so many hours and gotten not nearly enough actual like conversion out of it. Not enough skill has come out of the effort put in.
Fair enough. All right, I dig that. If you could have dinner and conversation, one person in history, who would it be?
Oh, maybe Hunter S. Thompson, the journalist.
Yeah.
Just because it would be an experience. I don't know if I could actually get him to sit down and eat a meal. That would be that because that's part of the question with someone like that. I think definitely Hunter S. Thompson.
That's a first, but I see where you're going with that.
Been like an idol for a long time.
All right. What are 3 things you want more of right now? Could be physical, could be characteristics, idea, time, anything. What?
Patience, instant noodles. That's kind of ironic that those are the first 2. And a dish, just one dishwasher, maybe. There's been way too much time washing dishes at the moment.
Okay. This is my favorite one of these that I've done so far. I want to let you know this is awesome.
Last night I did the dishes, and Emily, my partner, said, "Wow, you blazed through that." And I was like, "Have you been looking at the time? That took an hour."
maybe she was being sweet. They
nice.
were. So that's awesome.
Yeah, they're just being nice.
All right. What do you appreciate most in your friends?
What's a brief way of listening to me go on too much? I can definitely talk too long about things that interest only me, but they're all very like, okay, yeah, cool, very like understanding. Okay. I think because we're all like that a little bit.
I especially just creative folks in general, I think are like that a lot. So that makes sense, and I mean they're your friends, so they like you. Yeah, right.
I think we all just appreciate each other's passions, even when they are like way off each other's radar.
That's nice. That's awesome. I like that. And what's your absolute dream job?
Can I say none? No job?
Oh, I like this. Yes, tell me more.
Because like that's always been it. Like it was just, I mean, and that was part of like the wanting to start my own business was just like there is the outside possibility that I could one day have a hit, make a lot of money, and then I don't need to work, and I can just, smell the roses.
Just
And
waiting
and
for asthma day, right? Just,
yeah,
I
like
mean,
probably like still end up working anyway, but having the option to not do that would be fine. Yeah,
that is the
retiring.
first time I've gotten an answer like that, and I'm great. You've inspired me to keep this, because too often the answer is, "Oh, it's the job I'm doing right now."
Yeah, I love making it. It's just like no.
I would
Sometimes
like
I
to not.
sometimes I wake up and look at my laptop and I'm just like, no, free
I
me.
I have a new best friend outside of Jess. Lewis is my best. I appreciate the candor. That's awesome. That is fantastic. All right, so there you go. Lewis, thanks for doing this. This was fun for
Thank
me.
you.
And
Yeah, it's been fun for me, and I'm glad my door didn't ring because I'm waiting for Nemesis to arrive today.
you had warned me that there was going to be a board game delivery during, and could I fill the time and stall? And I had
Yeah, it
all
was.
these ideas of things to make up
It
and I didn't get the
was
chance to
tense
use
for a
them.
minute there.
All right. So Last Resort currently on Kickstarter. Go ahead, shill it. Go.
Please, Last Resort is a light medium Euro game about building a space station to attract tourists with too much money, and trying not to kill anyone in the process, because that's the detail that we've gone into on this one is all of the stuff that can go wrong with your station. There are like malfunctions that can appear on your station, and like space worms like eating people, or like faulty airlocks or insurance loopholes where everyone's just like smashing each other's visors in with golf clubs. And yeah, just this like weird drafting mechanism to simulate kind of, I don't know, like inefficient ticketing where you could end up like overselling and having to eject passengers out into space because there's not enough room. Just like really silly, but like still like, yeah, like kind of the same strategic thinky pain that like hits that sweet spot for us, where it's just like not utter brain burn that you can't get any of your normal friends to play. But yeah, but kind of that still just got that extra layer of silliness that makes people want to actually put it on the table and have a look at the space stations they can make. It's really cheap for like, especially like we launched it last year. We had to cancel it because we were just like, we shot for the moon and missed. So it's now like 10 quid cheaper. It's I think like $35 or so, for like an absolute buttload of components, like lovely little screen printed astronaut meeples and stuff. And yeah, just a ton of silly art, and you can make art to put in the game. So get in the comments and tell us what you want on your space station of your dream.
And how long is it going to be on Kickstarter for?
For another 17 days, just over 2 weeks, and we are not funded yet. We're only halfway as of today. So we need your support. We don't just want it.
Go check it out. Support it if that sounds like fun. So I think it sounds like a blast. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to checking it out. And then the gig, following up with that.
Yeah.
One. So when is the gig supposed to launch?
The gig is coming within a month or two.
Okay.
Like our currently we're working towards like March 1st, but with every passing day we're like, maybe we might delay, but I like to just hold on to deadlines and just like wave them at people as much as I can before they pass us.
I think that's a good way to do it. So following on the footsteps of Last Resort. So help go get it supported and go check that out. How can folks get in contact with you?
We are Braincrack Games on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. And if you like the sound of any of the games that we are making, we have a link tree in the bio of our like profiles where you can find like the, where to find more information in the newsletter pages for like the gig and further on into the future, other planned releases. We've got like an RPG coming and a real-time Civ game thing and just loads of ideas that we are enjoying mulling over and making into the best game they can be.
Cool. And actually, people are asking, so give me one second, and I will get Last Resort actually in the comments. There we go. Hold on. Give me a minute, folks.
Yeah, people can always go to bit.ly/lastresort-ks.
Oh,
There's
that's
a nice
easy.
short version of
Okay,
it.
that's good.
I've typed that a lot over the last couple of days.
I reckon
Yes.
you have, and there we go. There it
I need
is.
that like tattooed on my neck, like a gang tattoo at this point. Just my current Kickstarter.
And there, go check it out. There you go. All right, awesome, Lewis. This has been fun. I was gonna say thanks for getting up early for this, but then I realized, wait a minute, you didn't. I did.
It's nearly the end of the day, yeah.
Right. So I certainly appreciate it. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for getting up early.
Yeah, no, happily. I've been looking forward to this, and so I wish you all the best with Last Resort, the gig, and going forward. Just communicate with the backers, and it just goes to show backers will be good to you as well. So thanks a lot for doing this. Send our best to Emma and the little one, and glad you all are feeling better. And we will be back tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern, 1900, with Jiangnan, and then tomorrow with Imperial Steam. So
No rest for the wicked. This sounds fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Looking forward to it. All right, y'all take care. Thanks, Lewis.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.